Okay, we should be recording. So welcome to another weekly sprint demo. Let's get started with gold miners today.
So we worked on, one of the things we worked on last few days was just an ability to do mappings a little bit easier. Mappings has always been a little bit of a hard thing to do. So we added a new feature where if you go to users now and if you have any unmapped users, you'll have now a new tab that'll only show up if you have unmapped users. And the way we do it is we look at activity in the past 90 days. So we look at anyone who's had activity on pull requests or issues in the last 90 days. Now, you're going to see some people that probably haven't had activity in 90 days, but they're on here, and it's because we're looking at contributing users. So they may have created the issue 6 months ago. So they'll still show up, and I do that namely because they'll still show up on our UI. So I want to be able to make sure that those are captured. So in this case, you have a few options, and this again, the goal here is to sort of identify for our end users all the people that aren't mapped in one easy way to do it in one place. You can still kind of right-click and map and things like that, but this is meant to be a little bit of an easier screen for them to consume. And it also warns them if there's any issues, like in this case, like it is showing that they have unmapped accounts. So in this case, we're seeing real users on, this is our edge environment. So in this case, you've got a couple options. There's, you can, ignore the account, which almost all of these are going to be. And then obviously like Christy is a great example. If I go through here, I want to see, well, Christy's not actually in Edge. So this would prompt me to go invite Christy into the environment if she was a real user with real activity. So I think this also points out a nice thing that we want to kind of push and promote, which is like, hey, you actually have users that maybe you didn't think of that are in our system that maybe you didn't originally invite, but they actually have activity and you'd want to see all their data. So hopefully it'll promote sort of good behavior of inviting people in. But like in the rest of these cases, so I've got a couple of options. I can just ignore all. I can choose, this is Rick, and this is, whatever, Chris Boley, et cetera, which I will not do. I can do that kind of stuff. In this case, I'm just gonna ignore all. If I ignore all, then it just kind of goes away because there's no more mapped users. But the moment you have mapped users, then they'll show back up again. So that's the first demo. Any questions? When you map it, obviously it just creates a user mapping. That's all it does. It's just the same thing as when you right click. If you ignore, we have a new table. Sorry, just let me one more thing to explain. We have a new table called admin integration users excluded. So we use that as a suppression list. So we know if we find users that are not on that list, that suppression list, and they're not mapped, then we show them on the list, in that list. So that's kind of how the logic works. We don't have an ability to unignore someone. Bert asked about that, but I don't think that's a common use case. So I think once you dismiss someone, if you make a mistake, they can tell us and we can go in and remove it manually from the database. But right now we don't. It was just too complicated of a use case. Any questions?
It's really cool. It brings a lot of good memories back. One thing that would be nice we used to do was add in the activity as like maybe an info button where you hover over and it says last activity, last project. It's just an enhancement. I'm not saying obviously
it's a good enhancement. In fact, it's something I talked with Bert about because it's sometimes hard. Let me remove this. We can go back. Sometimes it's a little bit hard to. This is a dynamic query. It won't automatically refresh. One of the things I talked about as an enhancement, it'd be nice, maybe you could twirl this down. It would show a list of, maybe 3 or 4 activities, a pull request, a commit, blah, blah, blah. So you could get context. There are cases where, in fact, when I was testing, there was a case locally, there was a case I had where Andres, it didn't have anything. It was Andres, but it had everything was blank. And it just like avalums or something, it was so it didn't have an icon, etc. And so there are cases where you just don't quite know because it was a get reference, ref type. So the activity actually may help in that scenario. So I agree with that.
Gotcha. Cool.
I had a question.
Yep.
So like if you wanted to actually add one of these as user, like say you wanted to add Christy in there just so we were tracking her, can you do that from this screen, or do you have to go back and like invite the email address?
Yeah, that was another enhancement we talked about. It might be nice to have a button or something, you just click invite, invite, and it knows her email, and so it would just immediately invite her. Right now, no, you have to click over here and put her in the list right here.
Gotcha.
But yeah, that's a small enhancement. Would sort of be nice to promote the
and I guess sort of like if there were multiple like different accounts for, like if Christy had like a GitHub and a Jira and like a GitLab or whatever, and would they all show up as separate entries in this list?
They would. That's right.
Oh,
They would. And then they might even have different icons because your Jira
yeah.
icon may be different than whatever. So that's another good small enhancement we could put. We could put the badge of the ref type here. I didn't do that because that's one more thing we have to port with Agent 4 because I don't want to hard code any of that because obviously that's dynamic going forward. But that could be a potential where we show something. But it felt like this is enough. The goal here, at least at MVP, when Bert went through it with me with one of our customers, it was brutal. He was on a VPN, it was a self-managed agent. He's doing support. He's trying to right click. He's trying to find activity that he can then right click on to then map it because it's just really difficult. So this will save a ton of time.
Cool.
Any other questions? Let's just show one more thing. I'm surprised nobody made a comment about my what you're looking at, about my thing here, man.
Leaving it for the.
Yeah, nobody noticed.
Oh, that's Electron. Oh wow. Desktop.
Yeah, that's the desktop. This whole thing I've been doing is I've been running now. Everything I've been running is in Electron. It's just desktop. It's pretty trivial right now. It's obviously just pointing at our app. But it works really well. But yeah, so works pretty nicely. So this is just kind of our app running in Electron right now. No branding or anything. I'm just running it as is, just playing around with it. I've been using it for a couple of days. It's pretty nice. The other thing we did add, notebook. So this little notebook guy here, this is a tag or a label depending on if it's an issue or a pull request. So you do have now you can now see your labels if they're pull requests or your field, labels or custom fields, we call them tags and the data model. And if you have more than one, like this one does, you can sort of hover over it and see them here. So that's super nice. And that shows up pretty much anywhere you're going to see, like in stand-up or whatever, anywhere you're going to see, I don't know what's going on with our edge environment right now, but anywhere you're going to see that, you're going to see the tag. That's it.
That's awesome. Good stuff. I saw one thing, a tiny enhancement we could do for the labels is put in a comma between the labels, just so multi-word labels, you can easily tell the difference.
Yeah, I had that originally and it kind of looked weird, but I can go back and add it. It looked weird when it had two short labels, but when you now have multiple word labels, the opposite doesn't look good either. So that's an easy one I'll add.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Jira even supports multiple word labels, but it looks like the code systems do.
Yeah.
All right, is there anything else on gold miners, or should we move on to Team Bolt? All right, anyone on Team Bolt want to go first?
I got a quick little thing I can show. Sharing the screen button. All right, so let's see. Right, so we're working on the developer profiles, and so I've got a it's in the Notion and Team Bolt brainstorm docs. There's just a whole bunch of ideas for like kind of like, I guess I'm calling them signals again. We're going back to signals, which is mixed feelings about, but it's mostly, the point here is to be like, some fun stuff that you might like just like grab from their data and show, just like interesting things that would be like worth creating an account for. Like even if you've got like no other like uses for it, like, you know, you'd create an account and log in just to see like a word cloud of your commit messages or something, just because it's, you know, it's fun and entertaining. So you know, feel free to read through here at some point and mark any that you particularly like, or, you know, strike through any you don't particularly like, or add any more if you've got some.
What are your favorite ones so far, Nick?
So what?
What's your favorite so far in the list?
That's a good question. I kind of, I mean, you know, we haven't really done a whole lot of them, but I like the idea of like the word map. You know those like word maps thing where it shows your most common words real big from like your commit messages is kind of fun. I really want to do. I'll have to probably wait till Robin gets back to do like a favorite emoji or your like most commonly used emoji would be pretty fun. I think he already wrote a like emoji parsing script at some point, so with that it shouldn't be too hard to do something like that. That kind of stuff is pretty fun.
I like the similarity to famous people in GitHub.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool.
Nice. You're most like Rick Blaylock.
Yeah. Like,
To be so lucky.
Now where we're
You
setting
said
the bar.
famous people.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, arguably famous, perhaps.
Famous?
The bar for famousness, will have to lower it. So I don't know. I just figured I'd show off some graphs and stuff. I was thinking like, you know, your most like commits or most issues or most combination of work per day of the week would maybe be an interesting one. So I've got a handful of graphs I'd already like thrown together for that. It's I don't know. We've seen this kind of stuff before a long time ago. I don't think we ever had it in the app, but I don't know. It's kind of neat.
Which one is this graph? Which graph is this one?
I think this is issues per day of the week. It's obviously unlabeled, but yeah, here we go. It's the issues.
Yeah,
line.
issues.
So that would be closed date versus day of the week, which is, you know, it's kind of interesting.
Clean up. Yeah.
Yeah, Andrew doesn't do any. Actually, I'm not 100% sure this is working right, because like I'm sure Andrew's closed more than 12 issues on a Monday in the last, I don't know, like year or something that I grabbed the data for. So, but you know, it still shows you some interesting things, like, you know, he's got too many meetings on Wednesdays or whatever, right? Or Chris Bowley is out. Who even? Oh, that's Bert. Chris Bowley's this one. So I don't know. It's kind of fun. Jeff apparently does all of his issues on Thursday. So I don't know. Something like that would be kind of fun to look at.
One thing, and Matt Conger, you can probably talk to it. Something we used to do fun with the login screen. I don't remember exactly, but it was a while back. What
Insights. Yeah.
Insights. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Explain that, Matt. That was really cool.
Yeah, so Jose and I just, anytime we had like a question of like, I wonder, you know, what the most common day to do X is, or what, you know, the most often action is on this day or whatever, we would just always sort of write it down, and Jose would just put a little query together. And whenever you logged in, we had like this cool little fun fact, essentially. For instance, you know, what day of the year is the least productive, right? And we found out that like, surprisingly, the third least productive day was a day, I think it's like in October, because it's an Indian holiday. And so there's a lot of cool, interesting insights like that that you can get. And you know, we always wanted to make it so that it was personalized. So when you logged in, you would get cool fun facts about you or your team or your company. So that's something we can certainly try and add to this, I think.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Yeah. Yeah, if you
We should definitely bring that back. That'd be a cool thing, especially in like the daily and some of these new things that we're doing. We're trying to spice it up a little bit. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, if you have that list of like stuff somewhere, we'll toss that on the in the Notion, and we'll add those all in.
Yeah, the other thing we always wanted to do with it too was we wanted to eventually sort of parlay that into benchmarking almost. So you could see like what your most productive day was compared to all of our other anonymized aggregate customer data, right? So if we're going to start ingesting a ton of open source data that might be something to look into as well. See how you compare against other companies. And you can do some really cool stuff like other companies in your industry, other companies that have the same size, same number of employees as you, other companies that are in the same venture round, using data from
Tech stack
and stuff.
Yeah, you can use like tech stack,
Exactly.
all kinds of cool stuff. Yeah, location. Yeah, it's awesome.
Nice, thanks, Nick. Keegan, do you want to go up next if your Zoom's working now?
Yep, we're all good. Let me start sharing here. Okay, here's what we've got. So the first thing that I want to show is the is kind of what I've put together for a framework for doing the developer profile. So thanks to Matt Congrove for getting this design here built over. So I could focus on some of the frameworks around how we're going to be hosting these embeddable cards. So what you're looking at here, you can see this is an app running in Vercel. We call it Pinpoint cards right now. But basically, what it is it's a framework for all of the embeddable cards that we want to show off. So the first one I've been building out here is the profile. So you can see this is controlled by URL parameters with your profile ID and the environment. And so this is just the developer profile running like raw in the browser. But if I switch over here, you can actually see it here in context with the with my profile. So this is an iframe going out to our cards app, using my current user to render my developer profile. Now all that's live here right now is the name and the avatar, but if I log out and log in as one of my other users, this will change right here. So it's a little dynamic card that's embedded, and this is all available publicly. So so this app over here is running outside of our entire auth system. It just uses a raw GraphQL query to a custom endpoint that's public. So assuming that my developer profile is flagged as public, this will work. Otherwise, you'll get an error message that the profile you're trying to view is not available publicly. As part of the testing right now, I have it automatically generate profiles on the fly as you try to access them. So if I were to go to someone else's profile here, it would create one on the back end for me automatically, and set it to disabled. So if you want to test this, all you have to do is hit the URL and it'll create one for you, and then you just have to manually turn the visibility on. But in the next few days, I'm going to start working on some settings so you can control that from right in the product.
So where, hey Keegan?
Yeah.
So where is this information coming from?
So right now, the name and your avatar are coming from our system. So whatever you have entered as your user profile, everything else is a data model for the developer profile. So we're going to let you go in and you can add all sorts of things. You can add accomplishments. So you can see here this is all Matt's profile from the original UI mockup. You can see here he has different awards, and then also favorite things that he wants to highlight, as well as past work experience. So the model's all built out now for supporting some of this stuff. So I'm going to start adding some settings around controlling, what's visible on your profile and
Okay.
different things.
That's
okay,
really cool.
So you basically enter that information somewhere. It's not that it's fetched from any source.
Yeah, I think
phase one. In phase one, it's going to be you're going to add it, and then we're going to start augmenting some of this and recommending, in subsequent phases.
Yeah, like if you've had a Pinpoint profile, for years, we could theoretically know your work history and try to sort of recommend some things for you. And then favorites, I'm planning on you list what your favorite is, but we're going to go out and do the API calls to GitHub to figure out, all these details. So this stuff's all in real time, and you don't have to go through and try to enter, descriptions of repos and things like that.
That's
One
really cool.
small nit, Keegan, is the profile, the ID should just be a path parameter instead of a get parameter.
Yeah, we can do that. The reason I did it this way is because with Next.js, it was a little tricky to get that stuff working.
Okay.
In my development environment, but we can definitely switch it.
Okay. Yeah, just
The
because you want
advantage
to be
of
able to
the
paste it.
yeah
You want to paste it as a URL, and a lot of times get parameters don't paste super well, and a lot of things will strip them out. So
that makes sense. My plan for this stuff too is to create some little client libraries for actually embedding this. So rather than having to paste in an iframe with this long URL, you would use our little framework and say, this is my profile ID. I want to embed this profile here. I'll probably create a React component as well that we can drop into the app to render stuff like this.
And so the idea is you'd be able to, kind of like YouTube, you'd be able to click on an embed link and it'd give you like a link with all that stuff already kind of set up. Yeah.
Yep. So like if you're on your, when you're setting up your developer profile, you could just copy a block of code and paste it in anywhere, and it would embed your profile right there for you.
And the idea was for the cards framework is that would eventually be the case for other objects in our system like epics or roadmap or any of these others, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, definitely. So yes, so this card framework, you can see we have this first, the actual route here is /profile. So we can just keep adding various cards and yeah, publishing all sorts of different information that we want to make public.
That's awesome.
All right, so if there's no other questions about that, I also wanted to show off the new the new customer sign-up flow, because I know we've talked a lot about that, but now it's all wired up, and I can show you all that. So let me go ahead and show you that real quick here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the to sign up, just like I'm signing up for my customer. I'm going to use my Edge code here so that it goes to Edge. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and make an approved account. So we'll have to give it a second here for us to process this request. But in the old world, every time I do that, I get a new customer, no matter what. So this was leading to some confusion where customers were, their team were signing up again through the form, and then they were getting 2 different customers. So what we do now is on our backend, we look at that domain. So you can see here, I just received this email from our system saying that the company's domain pinpoint.com already exists. Now this doesn't prevent them from creating a duplicate customer in the case where we want to support people who are at a very large org and aren't necessarily in contact with the person who created the other customer, and they want to sign up for a trial as well. But what this does do is it eliminates the ability to accidentally create duplicates, because you have to take an explicit action here to say yes, create a new customer. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that I want to join the existing customer because I realized my mistake, and I want in the one that's already there. So you can see this says access requested. Now you get this because I was never invited to the customer. If I had already been invited, it would just resend the invitation again, and I'd get my magic link to log in. But in this case, Pinpoint doesn't know about this user yet. I've never been invited. So if you look over here on Edge, looking in the Edge environment, you can see I have there's this new request to join section, and you can see it has my name and the email that I tried to sign up with originally, and I can go ahead and I can either approve or deny this. So I can approve the request and assign them to a team, or make them a guest. And now what that's going to do is that's going to go out and actually. Oh man, it's running locally, so it's a little laggy, but it went out and it actually sent me an invitation. So you can see now I got this email, just like I was invited any other time, and I can go ahead and I can accept this invitation. And once I go and and then we're back in the same flow that you would have been if you were invited. So this should be really helpful in reducing a lot of the problems that customers have been seeing around just struggling with creating a lot of different customers at once.
Yeah, that's going to be super helpful. The one bit of feedback I'd have is, instead of having them, wait to go through that onboard flow, it would be I think it would simplify it if, like, when they get to this access requested screen, they could go ahead and link their accounts. And so they wouldn't have to necessarily go through the onboarding flow. They would just, it'd be like, let's create a new user, and or are you an existing Pinpoint customer? And then if not, let's link your accounts. Take care of all that so that by the time they get the invite, it's all done. I don't know if that's something we could do, but with the way that the account's structured right now, but that would just kind of streamline the process.
You wouldn't have a customer ID, so I don't know if you could do that right
Yeah.
now. I mean, once we do want to make it where you can have your own personal customer,
right?
And then I think it'd be easy to do that because you could set it up for yourself, and then once you were added to the other customer, the Pinpoint customer in this case, the demo duplicate, then it would automatically show up or whatever. So I think we have to do that first.
Yeah, we would have to have that first. Yeah, the way that this works is if there's multiple customers with your domain, like let's say a company has 3 different independent accounts and they're all in trials, it's going to send a join request to each one because we don't know which one you're trying to join. And then you only get invited to whichever one actually accepts the request. So in that way, like early on, we don't know how to set up your user because we don't know which customer you're actually attempting to join.
How do we filter out for non-business domains like Gmail? Someone wants to set up a Gmail.
That all happens on the HubSpot side on the
Okay.
on the form submission.
Okay.
So that's just a change to the HubSpot form.
In other words, if you, it's not going to like match the Gmail domain and then send it to.
No, it's not because we don't let you sign up at all with those public emails. It's all business emails as far as I know.
Well, we may need to change that.
I was going to say that's going to have to change. With the new profile stuff, that'll have to change.
Yeah, I can check if we do.
I can add a Gmail account.
Yeah, it doesn't let you do it here. But if that were the case, if we do change that, yes, we'd have to be a little bit smarter and not blindly match all domains. It would have to be only business domains.
Now you can add a user with a non-business domain in the UI.
That's true, you can, yeah.
So Keegan, what would be the experience if I invited you, right? So I invite you into the product, but for whatever reason, you ignored that email or went to your spam or something like that, and then you come in and sign up from Pinpoint.
Yes, so you would get a different screen here that would say that you were already invited, and we would notify you that we've resent the invitation because they do expire in 24 hours.
Okay.
So if you come in and you try to join one that you've already been invited to, we tell you that you have an invitation and we've resent it.
Is there a way to bypass the invitation?
Yeah, why not just let them right in? Is it because of magic link or something?
Yeah, so the magic link is how we verify your email. But you're
coming through. Yeah, you're coming through.
Yeah, in this case, you've already come through an email. So we could bypass the invitation completely, assuming that you only have one. If you have multiple,
you'll need to choose. Yeah, you'll need to choose. But if you have one, which I think it's going to be the majority of them, then
most likely, yeah. Yeah, we can do that. Everything here used our existing authentication and invitation system, so it was a very minimal amount of new code, which was really good for the first pass at this to get it out quickly.
Yeah,
but
that's
now
great.
we can start adding.
Exactly, it's a nice addition. I like that idea.
Nice work.
Yeah, great job, Keegan.
Cool, thanks. That's everything for me.
Awesome. Anything left on Team Bolt to show today? All right, let's go over to Team 9 to round us off today.
I can go first. Hold on, let me grab my screen. Do this. All right, you see my screen?
Yep, we're good.
Fancy.
All right, cool. All right, so continuing the saga of the daily idea of notebooks and all that. So prototyped out this week, kind of what the screens could be like. A lot of this is still unstyled. We're just trying to get stuff on the screen to get feedback and get some people, their design creative juices churning. So this screen right here is the kind of all teams notebook screen, or the org screen, if you will, where you can see all your team's current notebooks of today, what's going on today, and then past notebooks. There's still a couple of things missing on here. So this is all the teams today and their notebooks. There's a status over here on the left. I'm kind of just goofing around with icons right now. We can figure out what we want to do with them, but we need to figure it out. But like, I'm trying to have fun with it. So this, like, Nan is on a chill status. Bolt doesn't have a status. T-Emoji is a critical status. Wolfpack's good. And Gold Miners is a dumpster fire. So that's the status icons, and you can get a little bit of metadata before you click into the actual day notebook. The past notebook, still kind of mulling around ideas in this, but the idea here should be, it's not just past from like the day before, but you should be able to jump to last week. And I kind of floated a couple ideas of different UI things, like having like sliders where you can slide and say, in between these dates, I want to see notebooks, and then these notebooks would show up here. Or Chris has an idea of like the GitHub looking heat map activity thing, and it kind of highlights, depending on status or whatever, maybe the day's highlight or something, you can click on it and then filter it. So there's a couple ideas there. I haven't figured out quite what it is yet, but that should go up here somewhere at the top or under the title, where you can filter the notebooks by day. And then I think also we should be able to search the notebook based on text, based on the summary. Remember, we called them press releases last week. That's what this thing is. A team can like kind of write like a little blurb about how the day went. Anyway, so that's where
whenever we do that, let's just use Elastic. So just don't use Mongo for that.
Yeah. Although Mongo has that new search feature stuff. Have you seen that?
I know we want to play with it, but haven't yet.
So anyway, so I'm still not sure how we're going to do the date picker thingy, but that's the idea. And I'm not quite convinced this is the right layout for it in this grid. We just need to kind of toy with that. But this is the first screen. I'll show you the next screen in a second. But does this make sense? Any questions?
Why are they different width? Is there some intention for them to be different widths, or is just for the bottom past notebooks? They're different widths.
It's just because it's Flexbox and
I see. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, like if I adjust this now, it's all this. I can do that now. Got it. All the same widths and stuff.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Hey, Rick, one of the things that I keep seeing here is like there's no outside of the needs attention and stuff like that. It's like, where are they at in their progress, right? That's one of the things that I was kind of curious about is, could we take a minimized version of kind of the progress bar if they are in a sprint or something like that and put that at the top so you have a sense of, where they're at in their iteration? Does that make sense? So like on NAN there, that first top line, have like just a quick progress of, they have, 100 issues for this sprint and they've completed, 20.
Isn't that kind of the point of
dashboard?
Exactly. I was going to say it's a little bit of a different thing, and it feels also like the at least the status icons. I know they're toy right now, but I mean that kind of also is the team telling you kind of how they're feeling about progress.
Okay.
I agree. This, it's something to think about, but I want to be careful this doesn't turn into another dashboard, right? This isn't meant to be a dashboard. It's meant to be a way to get to your notebook.
Right.
And the icons, Rick, they sort of indicate how the team's feeling, right?
Yes.
Self-reported progress almost.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm actually kind of wondering if we should just let the team, I'm kind of going back and forth on it. Let the team pick an icon. It could be anything, any emoji or whatever, but then maybe they can add a little status text next to it so that you see the icon with the status. I don't know if we're going to do that or not, but that was an idea I had.
As long as we can map them, because there's some advantage to having a constrained set.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Because then we can do ML on it.
So.
I do like the idea of the teams having their own kind of icon.
I do too. As a separate icon, I do like the idea of having a team icon, which could just be an emoji or a fave icon or, anything you wanted, and people can set it. We already do that in the names, and it's kind of weird because they're in the name, they're embedded in the names. It'd be kind of nice if they weren't embedded in the names, but they were separate as an entity.
Yeah.
But I do like that idea too.
Yeah, and
would you keep the dumpster fire for your icon, Jeff?
Probably, because that would be very accurate. I can't even tell if that's a dumpster fire. I mean, that's
it looks like it's got a heart on it. I'll be honest.
Exactly, it's like a play button or something.
I was going through Font Awesome and I saw that icon. I'm like, I don't know who designed that, but I have to use it.
Can you zoom in? What even is it? It doesn't look like a dumpster. What is it?
Yeah, when you get in on it, maybe.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious.
All
right, keep going, Rick.
So we still need some iteration, obviously, on some of the design concepts, but this is just overarching concept. So then you click into like today's notebook or a notebook to get to the notebook screen. And the notebook screen, this is what I was demoing yesterday or last week, which is the block editor. You can add a new block and type stuff in it. But rearrange it if you want. So that's the block editor on the left. Right now we just have text. That I kind of preceded it with this thing. Hey, looks like you have a gnarly day ahead, because we had talked about adding things automatically to the top of your notebook, maybe based on the beginning of your day. Like, hey, we recommend looking at this or talking to these people or whatever. Maybe we can have separate looking blocks, like maybe it's highlighted a certain way so that people know that it's a system generated block or something. So that's one concept, is to have it inline here. And then on the right hand side, there's where you can set your status. And the right hand side, but then on over here we have a couple different ideas. So one is your daily summary. Remember we called it press release last week. I think we call it day summary. We still haven't come up with a name, but it's something like that, where you can enter in your status or whatever for that day, for the team's day. And then we bring in your action items, and then there's a couple other ideas of bringing in, like, hey, here's the team's calendar, the meetings going on, schedule and stuff like that today. That would be all over here on this sidebar.
Robin's on PTO. You could do some cool things like that.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Not,
so that would be over here in this today thing. Go ahead, Bert.
Well, and just to kind of the Robin's on PTO thing, but it's like that day summary could be a little bit dynamic throughout the day, right? So as they complete issues, as they, how many PRs did they, get reviewed, get committed? We could have some like little stats up there of, as it happens, that's what's, gets tallied up. And so at the end of the day, that kind of gets set in stone, but you can see, as you go back and reflect, it's like, okay, this is what we got done that day.
I think that's what activity though is, right? That's the next tab.
Yeah.
Let him go through the whole thing then.
If a user wants to summarize that, or the team wants to summarize that, then they can put it in the daily summary. It's kind of meant to be free form.
Okay.
And then if they, maybe in the future, if they don't fill it in, we can use like NLG and kind of like, do a Major League Baseball article that's all written by bots or something. Right. But daily summary is meant to be something that the team is servicing, just like status. It's like their
the narrative.
Their blog post, if you will. Activity, though, is what you're talking about, which is like, here's the needs attention thing they looked at. Here's today's assignments that, you need to look at, some, PRs that need to be reviewed, whatever. That would be under activity. It's kind of like, I'm going to switch over to this tab, our stand-up view. We have issues and pull requests and stuff. So we need to figure out how to kind of put this in the screen in a way that makes sense. But it's kind of this kind of thing, if you will.
But to Bert's point, with things, like let's say the team did 4 or 5 different PRs during the day, would they also show up here? Not just the things that need to be done, but the things that were done?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, like kind of like this. Like this is like, because this is open, this is closed.
Okay.
And we would have that segmented out. I think that, because again, this is for the team members, the most important thing isn't what they did, but it's what needs attention, what's today's assignments and stuff like that. So that'll always be to the top. And maybe we have another tab for a log activity log. I don't know. We can.
That's an interesting thing because we always spend time trying to communicate what we did yesterday, and because we don't always know what everybody's working on. So it's kind of an interesting take, because I would say the opposite. I don't necessarily know that Carlos did 3 or 4 other things. So and he's on my team. Maybe if the teams are all working very cohesively on the same stuff, you'll know. But oftentimes teams have 5 or 6 or 8 people on them. They don't necessarily know what everybody else is working on. Maybe they don't care, but
so maybe what it is this needs attention in today's assignments. Maybe that needs to go into today.
Yeah,
and then
that's what
activity
I was kind of thinking about, is what was done.
Right, is this stuff that we have here in the old
I like that idea.
stand-up screen. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, I think that, because that's like, especially needs attention. I mean, those are the things that everybody should be focusing on that day. And because especially if it's a production issue that comes in, like that's something that would be really important on the daily, is like if you have a critical production issue that comes in, you want to uplift that to your daily so that everybody knows that just happened, right? And so that would be a high priority needs attention item. And I think that's how I would see it. And then if you the other thing too is, like, I don't know if we're able to understand if something was blocked and becomes unblocked, being able to notify the team here, keep a record of that would be super helpful too.
Yeah, that comes in the kind of the activity feed, like this is up over here, the task list and the things you're following. Yeah, but like that idea for the team. Yeah. The other thing is all these things are supposed to be like smart objects or entities, if you will. So you should be able to click and drag any of these things over to your notebook, and it'll drop it in there with that block type. So it'll expand out like NAN 310 if I drop it in here, and then you can have a conversation on it or add some color or whatever.
That's gonna be great.
And then recommendations, I wasn't sure where to put this. Originally, I was thinking like this little banner at the top of the notebook, and I was playing with that, but it's kind of nice to have the notebook nice and clean too. But the idea here is we're going to recommend things for you to add to your notebook. This issue is blocked by you and somebody's asking you a question, maybe you need to talk about it with the team or add some context. You'll get things like, hey, in another notebook, in this case, Robin pinged you to set up a meeting and talk about this. I could click and drag this over here and then, have a discussion or put something in my notebook as a log or a journal of that. So I don't know where we're going to put it, but that's where I put it for right now. Anyway, so that's the high level ideas.
I wonder if that would make more sense as like an indicator up in your notebook itself versus on a tab there.
Yeah, like a little icon, like
like a bell or something.
And you
right
click
there
on it and it expands or something. Yeah.
And then you could just like click to add to your notebook, right? And then you could start the discussion.
Right. Yeah.
That's cool. And then would it make sense to put avatars next to each of the text blocks?
So I think the way we need to do it is when you mouse over, there needs to be like, maybe it's in this icon here where you click on the settings icon for the block or something. If we have avatars in every block, it's going to look like a mess.
It could also be only when you hover or only when it's locked, because you would want to know that, like, in the data model we have the concept of lock whenever you start editing it, right? So then it'd be nice to be able to, like, obviously treat it so it's read only, but also then put the person who's editing it's avatar up there.
Right.
Yeah, and one thing that we do that's really nice is if you've ever been assigned to an issue, we give you kind of the icons of everybody who's touched it. I know that's one thing in Notion in particular that causes me grief is I don't know who edited what, or if it's multiple people, or if it's just like some type of activity history for
some sort of way you could get it. The other one is I'd mentioned to Rick, I'd like to see the presence icons for the team up top. Yeah, like who's on the team, but then also like presence now that we, kind of like we do in retro.
That's good.
Yeah, who's looking at the notebook right now?
Yeah, well, and just who's online, not just who's looking at the notebook, who's online. I mean, I know Chris is offline right now or whatever, so, I think it'd be helpful.
That's looking good though.
Awesome.
Like
looking great.
Going.
Yeah, I like the direction. What would be the team? Because the daily notebook summary screen, that previous screen you had, what would I wouldn't land on that unless I chose all teams, right? Like if I came to my team, like my dashboard for my team, I would see my notebook, right, for the day.
Yeah, like
is that how you're thinking about it?
Yeah, you go to Teams and whatever the landing page is. Like if we decide daily is the landing page for Teams, then it would automatically be filtered for, in my case, Team Non. Just like how you go to dashboard right now and it'll be Team Non.
But would it put me in today's dashboard, or I'm sorry, in today's notebook
yes.
automatically?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because what we talked about was this would Rick and I talked about, and then John and I talked about, is like we would just create these notebooks automatically. Like every day we'll just create these notebooks. We'll automatically close them and create them, so you don't have to do anything. Right, Rick? That's how we're thinking about it.
Yeah, exactly. And we actually this morning we even talked about we should just go ahead and create in the future several days, because you might want to jump into tomorrow, or let's say it's on Saturday, but you need to add things for Monday. So we should be able to, we should have all that available for you. So if you want to jump into a future,
well, and some of that auto suggested stuff then becomes a lot easier because we already have them in the future. We could just put stuff into it, you know.
Exactly. Yeah. Or remind me about this at this time or whatever, and that shows up in your notebook. Yeah.
So, you know, I think this looks really, really cool. I'd love to get this in front of some customers because I think it's in a good enough space just to kind of get their feedback on it. And, you know, are there other things that they would expect to want to do here, or how are they tracking this stuff today type of thing, and start to get that socialized? Do you feel it's in a position to do that?
For certain people that go ahead, Jeff.
Go ahead, Rick.
I was going to say, so for certain types of people that, you know, they want to be involved in this and want to see how things are coming. Yeah, I think it'd be interesting. That, you know, it's just, this is all mocked out, so you got to keep that in mind.
No, totally. I don't want to
It's going to evolve a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be a structured conversation, but you know, I think as we're still in the ideation phase, there's enough here to kind of get the gist of the context. And, you know, they could provide some really good, you know, good feedback on, hey, we don't think this is going to be beneficial, or, hey, we think we could do more with the notebook, and this is what I'd want to do with it, right? So that's where, you know, I just think it's a good opportunity, and at that right phase to where we could gather some really important feedback.
Right.
I'll reach out to a few folks and see if we can get them on a call for you.
Cool. So what are y'all's thoughts about, okay, this is the current stand-up screen. You know, we have this thing with the sprint risk and all that. Do we have an extra tab here for, you know, sprint health or something like that shows that? What are your thoughts on?
I'll just give you my thought. I don't want to lose that stand-up screen because I think that's a board-oriented screen that's different than this. And maybe there's a way that can slide over. You know, maybe there's a different visualization, so it's not, you know, it's not a whole screen. Maybe, I don't know, but I feel like that screen's for different purposes, like for managing my board and kind of seeing how it's going and progressing, which is a superset of this. I mean, this is obviously part of that, but so I don't that's just my view. I realize maybe some of that's more redundant, so maybe we need to think about how to like bring them together visually, or the, you know, UX wise, but I don't know. And maybe it's a slide over, and maybe there's a way you can click a button and it slides over. Maybe we reimagine how you do it. And it just shows you your board, you know, and you can see everything and you can move things around and see the health of it or whatever. I don't know.
That's what I was saying. It would be nice to have like just an icon that says stand up or whatever we do with it. And then, yeah, it comes over and you can talk about it and then maybe drop right back into the log and what you just talked about, put information into the log, into the daily, right? So
yeah, I wonder.
I think it works in concert.
With Agent 4, we're going to have all the board is going to represent is going to represent exactly what's in your source system, and as you move it around and drag and drop it around, you know, it'll update back to your source system. So I'd hate to try to lose all that capability,
right?
Because I think it's orthogonal to sort of this. I mean, they're both very relevant. I don't know. That's my opinion. I'm certainly open to other people's opinion about it, but.
I totally agree. I don't want to lose the things that we have in the stand-up view now, but I agree with you that it's kind of, we're trying to rethink stand-up and make it more of a thing you can come to all day. I think we need to find a way to combine them, not just throw this one out. Well, one thing I would really love to take advantage of with the daily, where we're generating those daily logs every day, is like what can we track over time and start showing you trends for, like maybe how they're feeling, for example, like the status, if they're doing that every day. Like, how can we track that over time and see how the team's feeling over time? What other things can we add in there as well and kind of track over time? Now we have these daily notebooks created. Exactly, pretty useful.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And like, I think especially on the status, right? Is the status set by one person? Is it set by the team? Can anybody set a status and then we somehow create an average? Because that's like, if that's representative of the team sentiment of the day, or is that like hey, as a team lead, we're talking about the fact that, we've got a ton of stuff going on, a lot of unplanned stuff coming in, bugs, blah, blah, blah. And so we're going to set it to dumpster fire as an indicator to anybody else.
I think it's, my feeling here is why don't we just let the teams decide and not put structure on it? Let them decide how they want to do it. One team might say the team leader decides what it is, and they all talk about it. In other cases, the team might, on their stand-up, say, how do we feel? We feeling good? Okay, good. Let's just, it's more of a group thing. Do we have to make it so, because there's so many dynamics in every development team, it's hard to like prescribe specifically, it's got to work this way. That feels too Orwellian to me. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think like
about that.
Yeah.
Well, I do think one of the things we talked about is it could be the fist of five we talked about. Like if everybody, I think down the road, for right now, I think it should be the team status and it should be set by however they choose to set it. That's why we've been discussed. That's why we leave it kind of open ended.
It's sort of like the day summary. I mean, right, day summary could be the same thing, right? I mean, you appoint the scrum master to fill it in, or the dev manager, or the team leader to fill it in. And other teams, like maybe you appoint someone. Okay, this week Pedro's going to be in charge of summarizing, writing it up because he's on point. I mean, I like somewhat of the flexibility because then it allows the team to sort of create their own rituals around this without us having to prescribe specifically they have to do it this way.
Right, and I agree with that. And from like a product research perspective, I'm kind of just like, I want to put this stuff up there to see if people use it and how they use it, and then we can figure out more complex things. Because like I'm imagining the status stuff, teams will want to eventually, each individual says how they're feeling, kind of like what we do in the retro. And then that gets bubbled up as an average, but I don't want to do that yet.
But some of that could be done on the user dashboard too, right? I mean, that's a kind of it's sort of like, I log into my user dashboard and I set my own status or my own notes or my own thing, and that kind of rolls into, like you said, that kind of rolls up to the team, and maybe it shows like, and then it recommends an average because everybody's feeling like shit. Everybody's dumpster fire, so we're going to recommend your team probably is dumpster fire.
Yeah.
Like maybe as an example.
Well, and that's exactly what I was thinking here is like, every team has their daily, but every individual should have basically the same view, right? And they can create their own notes. They can have, their assignments for the day, their action items, anything like that that's, tailored specifically to them. And so if they set to dumpster fire, then, it's a bad day for them, right? And then that gives you long-term trending sentiment, like what you were talking about, Matt, which is, how do we start to get that? And it's you're creating value by giving them a space to input the their notes for the day and what they want to track and all that.
Yeah,
it's cool.
Yeah, it's great progress. So it'd be good to start using it. I know it's rough around the edges and you got to wire it all up and all that, but yeah, the sooner we can do that, I think the better we can start to give our own feedback with real usage. Even while we're trying to figure out some of the UX and some of the layout and all that, maybe that'll help inform it.
Right. Cool.
Great.
That's it for me.
Good stuff. Do we have anyone else on Team Nine or anyone else at all who wants to talk about anything today?
I can go. So a couple weeks ago, I was showing you guys, the new Project Lego stuff for running your data science infrastructure. So over the last week, a lot of kinks have gotten worked out. Before there was this problem we had with the micro batcher that was backing things up. So we're trying to, not every job we run, it can be streamed. So there are some that need a buffered stream. So we need to count a certain number of things and then fire the job off. Some of these triggers will listen to DB changes, and on DB change on that topic, it's really chatty. So we just need to be able to read as much as we can so that we don't back up Rabbit and then cause an outage. So this has been refactored. So this is really highly scalable now, where we've got our consumer bits where we can read from whatever queue you want and throw keys partitioned by customer ID. And you can get a secondary count key if you want into Redis. We've got another operation that will pull Redis basically, and then at a certain threshold and a certain time window, it's got to wait a certain amount of time before will flush, then it'll flush, and then the programs will run. So what that looks like, it looks like we have a whole lot of pods because we do, but that's okay. These things are all streaming through. Some of the things that we've been doing over the last week is tuning sizes, reservation sizes, and trying to optimize some of the models so we don't have to take 5 gigs of a reservation. A couple of other things. So all the periodic jobs or the micro batch jobs get shoved into a database table. So we know what ran, what didn't run, what it was run with. This is in lieu of logs and Grafana, which is coming soon. So
nice.
So it's looking a lot better today. Last week it was a whole bunch of failures because there were some model changes that we were working through, some data edge cases. So some of these things that are no issues in sprints, the message is kind of weird. It just means that these issue IDs weren't in a sprint. So we can't run sprint risk on it. Some other changes that happened, whenever we run an issue forecast, the sprint risk and epic risk listen for the DB change of the issue forecast and then will fire. So the dependency is right in those scenarios. One other thing that was really interesting too that I was fighting with a lot this last week was it was actually fighting with the HPA. So the horizontal pod autoscaler. So since we're listening to RabbitMQ, we used Kita to basically manage our HPAs for us based on queue length. But what's really weird, HPAs kind of have a mind of their own, and they choose when to scale up, and they also choose when to scale down. So it took a bit to figure out how to get Kubernetes from killing the pod when it was still running, and then 2, let it run and then have it die gracefully. So inside of our runner pod or container, so this is kind of our bridge into the whole system. We expose a shutdown route, which we use a pre-stop hook on the Kubernetes, the container spec. So Kubernetes will call the pre-stop hook when it wants to shut down, and it'll say, hey, pod, shut yourself down. So this guy gracefully shuts down the runner bridge socket stuff. So we'll shut down our event subscription if we're listening to it. We'll shut down the bridge if it's not active. So that means we'll let all of in this case, so there's 2 pods in here. One is this Go program, the runner, the bridge. This is kind of the bridge into the rest of the system. And this program is a Python program, right? So they talk over a TCP socket. So when we're shutting down, we need to wait for that to finish, and then we can shut down that. So once everything is gracefully shut down, that means that last message we were processing is complete. So we don't go into this weird churn cycle of a message comes in, it's going to take 20 minutes to run, HPA spins up, and then it wants to nuke that pod, and then that message would just keep getting requeued. So, and eventually it would get aged out. So this way the pod can finish running, it'll finish its work, it moves on, it gets killed, it gets cleaned up. So all these guys are actually terminated because we had an influx of data for this. So they'll keep going until they're done, and then they'll move on. So far it's looking pretty good. I'm finishing porting Sprint Health today, and that should be the last of the big ones to bring back online. So
awesome.
Stuff.
Yeah,
Do
good
you have
stuff.
anyone else, or is that everyone today?
We have the billing stuff. I don't know if Chris Bowley want to show that off.
Chris.
I guess I could show the stuff I was going to show last week, but it's it's old now. It's common knowledge.
That's okay.
Not for everyone.
Not for everybody.
True.
You're just close to it.
I might actually be able to share my screen as well this time. Let's try that one. Okay. So yeah, so there's a couple of things I was going to show, which have been merged in for the last couple of weeks. So the first one is the updates to the billing screen. It's just much clearer now, a bit more obvious about what options you have, and if you're in a state where you can purchase additional seats and things like that, then that flow is much easier to go through. This is the Pinpoint customer unstable. So we actually happen to have a legacy team plan. So there's lots of calls to action to upgrade to a paid plan. Obviously, we're kind of well over our user limit that we should have. And as part of this update, there's a whole bunch of additional banners and things that would be displayed for, if I'm outside of Pinpoint, when I'm over capacity, or my plan has been cancelled and my trial has expired over 2 weeks ago, that kind of thing. I could actually see if I have. Let me just actually. I don't know if it's worth going through all the different permutations, but you can imagine how it would work depending on which plan, which subscription state you're in.
You show the banner. Is there a way to choose one of your older customers?
What I can do actually, I'll just turn off the feature flag override. Just a second. Without wanting to turn it off for anyone else.
And just maybe a couple of things to talk about as well. So customers will obviously be able to trial, they'll be able to enter their payment details, which they could prior. They'll also be able to add users, prorated amounts and those types of things. So this is a much more fully functioning billing screen from that perspective in regards to letting the customer control much more of that type of thing.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, so if you're over plan, then we will present some hints and some persuasive messages to suggest going and visiting the billing screen. And there's also a state in which we'll lock down the app so that you can only access the billing screen if you have a cancelled subscription which has been out of the trial state for over 2 weeks. And that will basically lock you to this screen. So you have to upgrade or you won't be able to access it, or obviously contact us for support.
You say that was 2 weeks after it was cancelled?
Yes, at the moment it's 2 weeks after the end of the trial date, the end of the trial expiration date. Yeah. I think that there are other situations that we need to look at. I didn't want to enable those until we kind of handle migration of legacy plans to the new plans to make sure that everyone's on the correct limits and things.
Which we plan to do today.
Yeah. And the other thing is obviously this would on that user screen that Jeff was demoing earlier, obviously if you're over your plan limit, then you won't be able to add users. There's a discrepancy here at the moment, and that's what I'm going to be working on. We're going to fix the state. We're currently a little bit out of sync for some of the subscription states that we have, so we're going to fix that later today or tomorrow. The other thing I was going to show was so one of the other kind of last remaining screens of the web app, which wasn't ported to Data Manager, which seems like ages ago now, but I guess it was probably about 2 weeks, is the org analyze section. So this is now on Data Manager, but I also changed a few things. So fixed some of the queries. So you should see like issues and pull requests that you would expect to see in here, rather than based on created date or close date. They'll be based on activity. So it's, have they had activity in the last 14 days by default, but whatever date range that you pick. So you should see issues that you would expect within here. It's limited to 50, and then you can click through to go and see all of them if you need to, if there's more than that. It also uses the issue rows rather than the old tables that we had before. There's a few more fields in here as well. If I click on one of these, the tooltip's been updated. I also like some really basic stuff which was missing, like the created and closed or merged dates of issues and PRs are now exposed on issue details. Just more reasons to stay within the Pinpoint app, basically. So yeah, issues gets that treatment, and so does pull requests, as we had on in other places in the app, like the stand-up screen. There were some bugs in issue workflow. It doesn't look any different, but it just means that it renders correctly in various states now. Yeah, that's about it. But yeah, it's all in Data Manager as well. So obviously we'll get the benefits we have from that throughout the app.
Nice. That's great.
Yeah, really good adjustments on all this stuff. Good stuff.
Is that right? We all set? All right, that was a good session. That was awesome. I'll share the video around afterwards. Thanks everyone. Have a great day.
Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.